tell you this story. Now, the ANC's alliance partners are opposing Finance Minister Tito Mboweni's proposed economic reforms. The SACP and Cosatu accuse the minister of not consulting on his plan. Both alliance members attended the ANC's special National Executive Committee meeting at the weekend, and SACP First Deputy General Secretary Soli Mapaila joins us in studio now to talk to us about their presentation to the special NEC meeting. So you've made your submissions there. Has that possibly changed your mind about the Finance Minister's economic strategy paper?
Not much on the core things that we think are reversals, particularly the question relating to the national minimum wage, for instance, the labor relations regime, in which, for instance, there was an intention to deregulate it, basically to reverse the rights that workers have won in this country. In fact, they won them very hard even during apartheid. They forced the apartheid government through a massive number of strikes with loss of life in that space. And when we came in and further enhanced the rights of workers, who are actually the creators of wealth in society, this proposal that seeks to reverse that. So we reject that in totality. We also do not agree with the privatization of institutions like ESCOM. We think we must just find a way to own up that particular institution and make it work better, like it happens in many other parts of the world where such institutions are functional, but they are under the control of the state.
But what should happen with the likes of SAA, which the Finance Minister seems to suggest they have no clear public mandate?
Aviation is one of the fastest growing industries in the world, and in fact it's a major economic driver, like at the core of transport. And you don't want to throw away your aviation just because you need 10 rand. So you make it right, and I think that's part of the problem of his anchoring system.
Billions have been pumped into that airline for many, many years.
No, but if
some will actually be very insulted right now when you say if you just need 10 rand to throw into the thing to make it work.
I'm just using 10 rand as a metaphor to explain that if you need some extra cash, you don't actually throw yourself out of the house to be on the street and say, because I need to buy food. And after eating, you need to go and sleep. So that's exactly the same thing. Get the institutions right, make them work. They are highly needed. If you do that, that every other institution that has got a crisis, you throw it away into the private sector, which actually private sector throughout the world has failed the lives of majority of the people, including in this country.
Mr.
So
Mapaila,
it's not the solution.
Let me ask you this question. What is the Finance Minister's justification for why the national minimum wage needs to be revisited?
Well, in terms of basically, the proposal is about deregulating the labor relations regime, allowing, for instance, the informal sector to play a particular role. Of course, we support that ourselves. We think even in other parts of the world, that section of the revival of the informal sector, it's important. But in this case, for instance, is the fact that it allows the number of exemptions by existing proper companies who are not necessarily part of the informal sector. I can tell you that already in the Free State province alone, more than 4,000 companies have applied for exemption because they've seen that it is possible. And we just went to the election and talked about the national minimum wage. We are supposed to be implementing it. He puts a policy that basically reverses that. So that the impact, more than 40% of workers in this country were earning below that minimum wage. So the impact that is going to have is devastating. So you needed to actually bring up the level of income of workers at least above that of the national minimum wage.
It's interesting because it does appear that the SACP is still rejecting this document, whether in its entirety. You'll give me your take on that. But I need to ask you this question. The President, in his first weekly newsletter yesterday, suggesting that that economic strategy paper of the Finance Minister is what the government is actually going to finalize its economic growth strategy based on, which will include the contributions that have been made by some 700 people towards that document. Doesn't that put you on a collision course then?
It doesn't matter whether it's proposed by the President or not. we went to the people of our country. We developed a manifesto. The manifesto has got an extensive economic section. You don't create the manifesto that is unworkable. As far as we are concerned, the manifesto that we work together with the ANC, it's a workable manifesto. It's a manifesto that should be implemented. And on the one hand, you don't also go and take people who are opposing the views of your manifesto to be at the core, even your advisors on economic matters. That's a wrong approach. That's a wrong strategy. It's unworkable. It will never succeed. That is why we have to come back to the table to relook into what can work in the manifesto, what cannot work in the manifesto, which actually unites all of us. This thing is unnecessary, and it's just a delaying tactic. In fact, if you like, it's an insult to the people of South Africa that we create false hope. The government must just roll up its sleeves, work hard, change the things. We've got the capacity, we've got the areas that we need to intervene, rather than think that every other problem you throw it away to the private sector. It doesn't work.
Should the finance minister resign?
We're not necessarily saying that he should resign. He's a capable individual as a minister, but what we're simply saying is that the process of strategic policy making, it's not much his purview. It's a purview of the ruling party and its allies. We have given our independence to the ANC to lead proper through the manifesto. Why should we allow the betrayal of the manifesto in the first 6 months or within the first 6 months post the election? We can't accept that.
Sulma Paila, thank you very much for making the time to come and speak to us here.